The Biden administration continued its regulatory assault on domestic energy production this week, with the EPA issuing sweeping new rules on Thursday that could force many of the country's coal-fired power plants to shut down unless they undertake costly upgrades. Those rules come a week after the Interior Department blocked new oil and gas leasing on more than 13 million acres in Alaska's National Petroleum Reserve and threw up new hurdles to critical mineral production in that state, moves that my next guest says endanger U.S. national security. Republican Senator Dan Sullivan, Alaska, joins me now. Welcome, Senator. So explain to me how,
good morning, Paul.
How something called the National Petroleum Reserve can be blocked from exploring for petroleum.
Well, it shouldn't be. Well, the move was not only illegal. The Biden administration does not have the authority to do that. It's national security suicide with regard to one of our nation's great strengths, which is energy and natural resources. And Paul, this is something that's so infuriating with this administration. You know, they continue to sanction Alaska, but from a national security perspective, they won't sanction the Iranian oil and gas sector, which is, of course, is the source of the Iranians' funding of their proxies, Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, all over the world. So the only people who are pleased by this are the far-left radicals that support the Biden administration. The president feels he needs to please for his reelection, and our adversaries around the world. This is undermining American strength. Of course, it's bad for my constituents, but, you know, the National Petroleum Reserve of Alaska is one of the most prolific oil and gas basins in the world. Right now, we have the highest standards of environmental protection when we produce here in Alaska, and I'm back home right now in my beautiful, great state. So this is just maddening, and it makes us more reliant on countries that are our adversaries. Critical minerals, the Ambler mining district that they shut down last week, probably is one of the biggest sources of critical minerals in America, maybe even in the world. And now they're saying we can't use this for our nation's strength, for Alaskan jobs. We'll just be more reliant on China for critical minerals.
So, Senator, I mean, I think the administration, if they were responding to us, would say, look, we have had record oil and gas production in this country in the Biden years. So what are you worried about? We're doing better than Trump did. What's your response to that?
Well, first of all, as you know, the oil and gas sector is a long-term development sector, horizons of 4 to 6 to 10 years. So some of the production that's actually happened in the Biden administration was because of Trump policies. But, Paul, you guys have written about it. Most of the increase in production under the Biden administration is not on federal lands. It's on state and private lands. And with regard to policies relative to federal lands, they have locked up and shut down federal land production more than any other administration. They've had the lowest number of leases for sale on federal land since World War II, the lowest number of offshore leases ever. So their policy has been to limit production of American energy where they can on federal lands. Unfortunately for Alaska, the National Petroleum Reserve of Alaska is federal land. But I'll show you where their biggest failure in terms of energy policy is. It's at the pump. It's at the gas pump. Right now, at the end of the Trump administration, average prices for gas were about $2.10 per gallon. It's up almost 60%. $3.40 is the average, which has led Joe Biden to tap the National Petroleum Reserve for politics, not for emergencies. Look, there's a National Petroleum Reserve he should be tapping. It's called Alaska, and he won't do it because he's taking direction from the far left.
So what resort do you have here? Obviously, you suggested that this is illegal, so presumably somebody will challenge it in court. Yeah. I don't know if that'll be the state of Alaska or who. But what else can you guys do? Or is this just a question of you have to elect a new president?
Well, we can challenge it, and we will challenge it. The state of Alaska will challenge it. I'll tell you another group that will challenge it, our Alaska Native leaders. You know, one of the most cynical things about this decision last Friday is the Biden administration, the president himself said, I'm doing this on behalf of and in support of and to benefit Alaska Natives who live on the North Slope of Alaska. That's just a lie, Paul. The Alaska Native leadership, the elected leadership of our Alaska Native communities, our indigenous communities on the North Slope of Alaska, are fully opposed to this rule because it undermines their economic opportunities. So we will challenge it across a whole host of Alaska stakeholders. But I think you're making a really good point. At the end of the day, elections matter. And this administration has been more anti-energy, anti-American resource development than any administration in history. And we just need to change the occupant in the White House to make sure these policies, which the vast majority of Alaskans certainly support, but Americans support, to use America's great natural resources to our benefit and our strength, not to unilaterally surrender that strength of our country.